YouTube boxing family, it is IK right here, back at it with another video for y'all today. Yeah, be sure to hit this like button, do what y'all gotta do, and I got some interesting content to bring to y'all today. So yeah, let's get right into it and let's break it down, man. I got some idea. Well, I have some commentary to bring about with Terence Crawford. Also shout out to this YouTuber, Boxing Fight Simulations. He's just doing like a little, like basically YouTube video talking like about, well, just basically, he does Fight Night Champion videos with like, what if boxing matchups, and he's like a really good YouTuber if you guys want to go check him out. He has a really good fight simulation with Gennady Golovkin versus Terence Crawford, which that would be a massive mega fight if that was to happen in real life. Well, if these guys were to have fought in their prime, but yeah, let's get right into it, man. I have some pretty interesting topics to talk about with Bud Crawford. But before I do that, let me pause the video and let me tell you some special, interesting news that I heard about Crawford getting called out by WBO and IBF middleweight world champion Janibek Alam Kanala. Hold on, let me show you guys that right now. I'm going to pause the video. Alright, I'm back. So yeah, this is basically what I saw with Janibek on Twitter. He stated that if Crawford agreed to fight me, I would gladly face him, and our fight would be the kind of match every fan would watch with excitement, not wanting to miss a single second. So yeah, let me pause this, and then I'll go right back to the fight night, like fight night commentary with the gameplay. Hold on, give me 1 second. All right, I'm back. So yeah, basically, my whole take on this before I talk about Crawford himself is that I find this to be very interesting. I think Janibek is a very interesting fighter that can very well give Crawford a lot of problems. But do I think this fight should happen for Crawford? Personally, with me, no. I think Crawford should probably go ahead and fight Canelo Alvarez in a rematch, which credit to Terence Crawford once again for being a 3-division undisputed world champion, sitting next to Henry Armstrong, who is technically the very first American to have accomplished that goal. And yeah, Terence Crawford, he's just a monster, dude. I mean, he's the very first ever 4-belt era undisputed world champion to go that far. And I think, he's done like a really good job, putting himself in that position. So I think Terence Crawford has done a really good job putting himself in a way better position that he was at. And who would have thought that Crawford would have actually made it this far, and he actually did something like that. So credit to Crawford, he's done a lot in his career. But let's just talk about what Janibek had said. I personally think Janibek is a good fight, but I think Crawford should focus on Canelo. And then if Janibek is on the table just to end out his career, where, granted, it's still a tough fight because Crawford still has to go out of his way to, make the sacrifice to lose all that muscle or to lose, like a little bit of weight from 168 just to beat Janibek. But I think I think Crawford is a good disciplined fighter where 160 is actually a lot better if you're trying to like move back down. If anybody's trying to say, as like a very ignorant Bud fan would usually try to say, oh, Crawford should just go ahead and just basically, fight, how should I say, like basically, some weird Bud fans would say Crawford should just move back down to 154 and go for undisputed there. But I'm just like, no. Like, Crawford had already put the risk through his body to make it to that level. So it's like, if I'm Crawford, I would just rematch Canelo, take advantage of that Canelo payday. But then on top of that, you can go out of like your way and probably go to 160 if you want to. I don't think he needs to. I think Crawford should just rematch Canelo and he could just basically retire. If Crawford does end up becoming a 4-division undisputed world champion, which that's very possible for Crawford to do, I would be very surprised if Crawford actually does that. But based off of like what is being shown with his skill set, I think it's going to be very telling to see where Crawford's going to be in the future. Now, as far as how Crawford gets there to the high level, that's always going to be questionable, of like how he's going to fight his competition to become undisputed. But I think Crawford, if he fights intelligent like he did with Canelo, I think Crawford, he could very well do it. Now, do I think he should fight Janibek right this moment? No, he should go ahead and fight Canelo Alvarez in a rematch, because the rematch is going to be a lot bigger. A lot of Canelo fans are going to be like, "Oh, well, Bud, and Canelo was a good fight, but Canelo just wasn't himself that night." So I think Canelo fans, like all his very ignorant fans, are gonna try to go out of their way and say, "Nah, yeah, man, Canelo needs to be, he needs to be more aggressive, blah blah blah." So I can see all the Canelo fans going out of it their way, being very. Oh wait, hold on. Oh, hold on. All right, I'm back. Yeah, so I can see a lot of Canelo fans being very active with their voices to say that Crawford is going to have like a much tougher fight up against Canelo in a rematch, which I don't think so. I think Canelo, he's going to be psychologically, defeated by Crawford's style, and I think the frustration that Crawford did to Canelo was just absolutely golden. Like Crawford did everything that he would do up against a guy like Canelo, and it just shows like how much of a good fighter he really is, because you're never going to have anybody like that do that to you. So I just find that to be very interesting that Crawford had actually put himself in that position to be successful. And shout out to him, man. There's no other fighter that's going to do what Crawford does, because Crawford is actually a very good, gifted fighter. Now, as far as how Bud was moving throughout his career, I did not like how Bud was moving within his career. Now, shout out to certain people that I rock with in the LDBC. There are certain people such as well, like I'll definitely give shout outs to certain YouTubers like BFTB. Definitely go check him out. He was right about what he was saying about Crawford. Crawford is a good fighter, but he's a very opportunistic guy, where he moves very weird in his career, where he's not like challenging up against the best. And personally with me, I've always had that issue with Crawford, and I think Crawford has put himself in a much worse position in his career, where he should have been he should have been at the very top, defeating everybody at the high level. And then these opportunities that Crawford could have had, he could have been undisputed a lot faster. Like, he could have been your 4 division or 5 division undisputed world champion. Granted, it wouldn't have been easy, but guess what? He would have taken some losses. And there's like another person that I actually rock with. His name is Stay Dangerous Boxing. I was gonna tell him that he actually needs to have his own YouTube channel, because he's a very intelligent person. When it comes to boxing. He told me the other day that Crawford is a opportunist, and this is on BFTB's page. I want to say maybe like at least a couple weeks back, once Crawford had beat Canelo that following weekend. And he made up a very good point. He stated that Crawford is a opportunistic fighter. If Crawford was actually a good fighter, he would have been fought everybody. Because I made the claim to state that Crawford, he's like Sugar Ray Robinson, where he's doing like the same exact thing to be undisputed, but he's actually putting himself in a much higher position to be successful. Which, that was a long shot, and, I corrected myself at that point in time, because I thought Crawford was doing something that no other fighter would ever do. But actually, if you kind of think about it, Sugar Ray Robinson, when he moved up in weight, he was obviously a 2 division undisputed world champion. He was going up against the best of the best, and he was fighting like every other week, if not every other month, which, that just shows like he's just a good fighter, because he's not just like a guy that's just going in taking damage and then he's just going out there brawling with fighters. Because if he did that, he wouldn't have never made it that far, having over at least like 100+ fights. So I think with Sugar Ray Robinson, the comparison with him and Crawford, I went a little bit too far initially stating that. But as far as Crawford being a all-time great, I would really put Crawford next to guys like, well, no, not next to them, but if you were to put Crawford to compete with these guys, Like definitely guys like Henry Armstrong, Harry Greb. I mean, definitely Sugar Ray Robinson if that was to ever be a what if worldview, where if you had all these guys from the past and they were in our today's roster, like of boxing, like guys like Sugar Ray Robinson would just defeat guys like Teofimo Lopez. He would brutally knock him out, and then he would very well give guys like Floyd Mayweather, Devin Haney, Manny Pacquiao, like you name it, like Sugar Ray Robinson, he's gonna be right there defeating everybody. But obviously he's gonna go through some really good losses because he's just that good of a fighter to go that far within his career. So I think like honestly, when it comes to Crawford, man, he could really compete with a lot of high level classical fighters if he put the work in. If Crawford had defeated everybody in his division, especially from like 135 to 140, 147, and then let's just say 154. Let's just say if Crawford had started his career at a higher weight class, he could have been undisputed a lot better with his competition pool being a lot stronger. Now, where Crawford goes as far as where he should have been is that Crawford, he should have been in a position where he should have been already 3 to 4 division champion. So it's like him already defeating the best competition in at least 3 divisions where like honestly, oh, like I'm so sorry, like I should have skipped that. Crawford Crawford beating guys within his division a lot earlier in his career to become undisputed would have made him a way better fighter and a way more technically sound, multi-dimensional versatile fighter. Because that's what makes Crawford very special. He's a very special fighter that has those gears, and he has that genetic component of just having that boxing IQ to be special. And I don't use the term generational talent because I don't believe that exists, but there are developmental skills that are just ingrained within a fighter's, genetic framework. It's not even genetic. It's more like the skills alone that are built within your physicality is what makes you a very good fighter. Not based off of your genetics, is based off of your physical athletic ability of how good that you go. So to me personally, I think Bud has done himself a really good job because you cannot say Crawford did not do anything correctly within his career. I think if anything, Crawford, he should have done things a little bit more. How should I say? He should have done things a little bit more, I guess, stronger within his career, where he should have fought the best a lot sooner, and that would have made Crawford a lot stronger as a fighter. Because Crawford, he has a good style. He's very oppressive with his jab. He's very defensively gifted. Not a lot of people really give Crawford a lot of credit for that because they like to say Crawford, he's not, he hasn't put himself in there with the best, which I can very well agree because Crawford, he should have been in there with, the best competition a lot sooner. Because if, honestly, if we're mathematically, leveling this out with Crawford's, skill set, Crawford should have been fighting like guys like Gennady Golovkin if he wanted to start his career at a higher weight class like 160. Like Bomac said, obviously, like a few weeks ago saying, oh, well, Crawford, like, Crawford could have easily started his career at a higher weight class. But the reason why he did not do that is simply because he probably was trying to test out the waters to see how far he can go with being, a champion at a smaller weight class, but then he could just go ahead and just do the same thing what Floyd did. But the thing about Crawford is that he moved his career in a way where Crawford should have been in a way better position, where he should have never put himself in a much harder scenario of having to basically lose opportunities to face like the best competition. Because if Crawford did that, he would have definitely put himself in a way better position as a fighter if he became undisputed at 135, 140, beating the best, like beating every single champion, and just moving on to becoming like a great talent. Crawford could have done that. So I think like the thing about Bud is that he has all the tools to be a all-time great. Oh wait, hold on, give me 1 second. All right, I'm back. So, yeah, basically, based off of what I was trying to say is that Crawford Crawford has all the tools of making himself a undisputed talent, where he could have done this a lot sooner. And I actually spoke on a channel. I believe it was a YouTube channel by the name of Divine Sense Boxing, and shout out to Divine Sense. And I pretty much stated that Crawford should have easily been undisputed a long time ago, and if he was at a level of which he could have done himself of being like a better talent, um, he could have done this a lot a lot soon, like a lot sooner, while being while being how should I say, while being younger. So I think that's what Crawford should have done. So I think that's really how it should have been, and Crawford could have easily done that. But I think the way how he moved is just that Crawford had way too many opportunistic routes where he did not want to fight the best, right away. And he was trying to put himself in a career where he didn't have to work as hard to get to where he's at. And I don't find that to be fair. I think Crawford should have easily done something in the sense of, where he should have, how should I say, he should have fought the almighty best competition, and Crawford would have been fine. If he had done that, then Crawford would have put himself in a better position, and I think that's what I think that's what would have made Crawford a all-time great, throughout his career faster. But he would have beat like the best of the best a lot earlier in his career. Like, let's just say if he unified 135 to become undisputed, and he actually did it as soon as possible, Crawford could have done that. But I think Crawford, he probably just wanted to just move up back to his natural weight, which is usually 147 and above. But I think overall, Crawford, he could have done things a little bit better, where he could have been a little bit more, stronger with his opponent selection, and Crawford would have put himself in a much better position. So I think either way, Crawford has had a very weird career as far as where he was scaling in his career, and it could have been a lot better of where he could have been. But I think the issue is that a lot of Bud fans that are true fans that do respect him and support him, is that he could have fought these guys that he had beat, that were notable on his particular resume when they were actually in their prime, like Sean Porter, Kell Brook, who else? I mean, Errol Spence to that particular degree. Obviously, even though that you know that um, even though that I am a Errol Spence fan, like, I will be honest to say, like, yeah, Crawford did beat Spence for undisputed, but in my honest opinion, Errol Spence was not physically healthy in that fight, where he had like a broken rib going into that fight. And Crawford, he obviously took the right opportunity to defeat Spence, where Errol Spence basically was not his best coming into that fight. And if he was in his best and he was in his prime, Crawford would have a way better victory over EJ, because actually EJ. Oh wait, hold on, give me 1 second. All right, I'm back. Yep. So I just had to fix up my I just had to fix like my YouTube, real quick. So yeah, back to what I was having to say is that Crawford could have easily made himself a way better fighter by having to, face the best competition and become undisputed a lot faster. And if Crawford had done it like that, to beat everybody undisputed in his own gauntlet of competition, where he unified every single division and beat every single fighter in the division to clean it out, Crawford could have easily been, a 3 division undisputed world champion a lot faster, or at least 4 division undisputed world champion by now. So, I mean, that's just pretty much it. I mean, that's pretty much it of how I see that with Crawford. I mean, I think Crawford is just a special fighter, bro. If you put him in there with any of the good fighters of today's era, Like, let's just say if he had fought Gennady Golovkin and he had beat Gennady Golovkin while he was working on his, like, I don't know, fourth or fifth division, Crawford would be he would be a absolute monster of like where he's at right now. And I have to say, like, Crawford makes it look too easy when he faces up against guys that are bigger than him, and he just kind of like elevates himself at a level where you can't see that within any other fighter. Of any particular current generation. Crawford is like an old school generational fighter, and I think that's what makes Crawford a absolute monster because he's really disciplined in his craft and he's very dedicated to his skill. So I mean that's just what makes Crawford a very special fighter, man. So yeah, let's just talk about the all-time great status. Where does Crawford rank as an all-time great? Personally, with me, I think Crawford deserves a top 25 spot in the all-time ranking. Because simply it's due to his development in his particular resume. I think if Crawford had kind of done things a little bit smarter with facing the best competition a lot sooner, and he would have taken some losses, but he actually would have bounced back and became undisputed within 3 to 4 weight classes. A lot faster in his earlier career. I think Crawford would have been an absolute monster. So personally, for me, I would put Crawford as a top 25 all time great or top 50 because, the skill level of like, the guys like Charlie Burley, obviously Muhammad Ali, you got Jack Johnson, you got Joe Gans, you got, like honestly, you have the best of the best competition where guys were going at it every single day because obviously they need to fight to survive with having like the money that they needed. But still, you still had guys like Gene Tunney, which Gene Tunney, he was a good fighter himself. I believe he did win a world title as a undisputed world champion, but it was only like one division. I think it was like middleweight or welterweight. I know he defeated Jack. Well, I want to say it could have been heavyweight because I know he competed with Jack Dempsey at that time, and he knocked out Jack Dempsey pretty bad because Jack Dempsey, he was an absolute cheater, in the sport of boxing. So personally, with me, I think like the best competition, like Archie Moore, guys like Sugar Ray Robinson, other fighters like I don't even know. I mean, guys that go skill for skill with Crawford based off of like how good they were. I think Crawford he would have a really tough time with all those guys that I have mentioned, like Charlie Burley, Archie Moore, Sugar Ray Robinson, maybe even Jake LaMotta. Jake LaMotta is a very good fighter, very technical, very strong, very tricky. I think like guys out of that caliber were very difficult. Harry Greb would have been a very tough fight for Crawford. I mean, there's so many tough names I could just keep on going. So like I don't really know like where the scaling would go for Crawford, but I think Crawford would easily have the toughest fights of his life if he went up against like Joe Louis, um, obviously Muhammad Ali. If him and Crawford were like in the same division, like actually skill for skill. So it's like I just think Crawford he definitely deserves like a top 25 spot or top yeah or or at least top 50 all-time greats. So I think that's a fair thing to give to him because all the other great fighters that have came before him have done a lot of great accomplishments and they did what they had to do, like Floyd Patterson, let's see. Um Man, there's so many good fighters. I could just keep on going for days. I mean, Sam Langford, he was a monster back in his day. Like, dude, like everybody, bro. Like, I could just keep on going forever and forever. But like, once we even talk about like the Sugar Ray Leonards, the Sugar Ray Leonards, Roberto Duran, Tommy Hearns, and Marvelous Marvin Hagler, like they were obviously like a two division undisputed world champion, like that being Sugar Ray Leonard, and then obviously Marvin Hagler, but it's like still like Crawford has a really good ceiling where he's in that conversation where all the all time greats would easily give him a run for his money if he was in an alternate worldview in those competitive divisions back then. Obviously, back then was at the no decision era because like basically what that means is that that was particularly reported by the media where a lot of like the victories that were really claimed to be a victory for the fighter was just to be reported by the media based off of their own bias that they had for that fighter. So it's like if the fighter ended up getting knocked out and the media actually saw it, then they'll end up being biased to say, well, the fighter did get knocked out, but the fighter ended up going to war and he got knocked down like 6 times, but that the referee stopped it due to like a really bad, uncalled, quote unquote, like waiver per se. So I mean, that's really like the problem with like, the fights that went down back in like the 1800s to 1900s. But I mean, boxing has been around for thousands of years, so it's like, even if you try to like be biased for like a fighter, like the best of the best fighters will come out because people will give credence or give particular respect to fighters that actually work their way up to the top, like a Jack Johnson, Joe Gans, Sam Langford. I mean, there's so many of them, dude. Like I can probably even like talk about so many fighters like within one video, but I'm not gonna do that. That's where like all the old school boxing historian people, they go after that type of stuff. I mean, I don't listen to all of them because some of them are really biased and very dumb. But yeah, man, I think Crawford, he's definitely a top 25 or top 25 to top 50 all time great. If you put Crawford in any conversation with those guys to be in a competitive fight with them, Crawford would definitely give those guys a run for their money. So yeah, I think Crawford, he deserves all the flowers that he gets. Like I said, I think Crawford should just go ahead and fight Canelo Alvarez in a rematch, and then he should just hang it up. I don't see anything else left for Crawford. He already has a lot of money generated from the Canelo fight. I think he made at least like, Crawford got 10 million from the guarantee, but off the back end, Canelo Alvarez didn't make anything off of that. But Crawford, he got a good portion off of that back end that was being granted him. So Crawford made like at least like 50 to 60 million from that fight. But if Crawford ends up fighting Canelo again, I think Crawford should max out and say, hey, I want to fight you, in a rematch, Canelo. I think that's a really good thing to do. And also, let me just add in one more thing about David Benavidez. Before I close things out, because, well, actually, you know what? I'll probably save David Benavidez for a different video. I'm gonna finish up this video, and then I'll talk about David Benavidez, and then I think I'll be done for boxing videos for today. But if I come up with more videos, I'll just post them into my YouTube channel. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for this. Hope you guys enjoy that. But I will catch you guys in another video. And be sure to like, rate, comment, and subscribe. And shout out to Terence Crawford for being the second American in American history to become a 3-division undisputed world champion, and to become the very first American within the 4-belt era to become a undisputed 3-division world champion in this 4-belt era. So congratulations to Terence Crawford. He should be really proud of himself, and really appreciate the true fans that actually do support him and actually want to see him rise, to being the best. So thank you very much, Crawford. I hope you hang it up. I think Crawford has done enough in his career. But if he does continue and he fights Janibek next, or let's just say he fights Canelo, I am all with it, man. So shout out to Bud Crawford. He is the Elder Gods, champion of Mortal Kombat. So yeah, man, that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys later. I'm gonna do the Bud Crawford versus David Benavidez fight. So, all right, I'll see you guys. Peace.